So I don't know about you, but trust is kind of a big thing for me right now. Every time I turn around, everyone I talk to, every podcast or news story, I think about trust. Can I trust this? Can I trust you? Is this true? I know this is a result of so many things that I've historically relied on being dismantled and broken down. Trust is a big thing these days. Warren Buffett once said that trust is like the air we breathe. When it's present, nobody really notices, and when it's absent, everybody notices. And so if his words can be trusted, that means that I'm noticing trust these days because it's absent. And I really don't think that's a good thing for our hearts and our relationships or our general sense of well-being. Distrust is not healthy for humanity's thriving. We've talked already about what it is we can rely on. Things like trusting that there are lessons everywhere, that life is imbued with mystery and beauty, and that we have the capacity to act and to change, that love is a powerful thing. And we've talked about how important it is to trust in community, especially in these times, about how showing up for community over and over again is one of the bravest things we can do, knowing that the only real liberation is collective liberation, and the only path to healing is one that's wide enough for all of us in community. And today I'm reflecting on what trust requires of us, which is essentially the willingness to engage in the practice of trust and to build or rebuild or repair trust when we've lost it or felt betrayed by it. If, as Marilyn Robinson has said in a review of the book Trust Me for the New York Times, it is trust that knits up the world, then trust is a stuff peculiarly liable to fraying and raveling. I've always loved the image of woven things, tapestries and quilts and hand-knit sweaters, and then Indira's web and the interconnected web of all existence, images of disparate things woven together with intricate patterns of connection, and in that process creating something that's more than the sum of its parts, stronger and more beautiful. And Robinson is saying that trust is like this. It is woven and can be unwoven. It can become frayed at the edges. Just as trust can be something that binds us together, it can also unravel. And so it falls to us to find ways to continue weaving and to mend the torn places. Now, of course, this assumes that we actually want to make a whole, that we believe existing within circles of trust is a desirable thing. So do we believe that? Do you? I wonder how important it is to us to build and maintain trust in our relationships. How willing are we to do what it requires of us? My colleague Rod Richards once spoke about a study about trust that was published by the Association for Psychological Science, where it was reported that our trust in each other diminishes as cultural individualism replaces community building. Our trust in each other diminishes as cultural individualism replaces community building. Cultural individualism inserts a kind of skepticism into our personal lives. It sees each individual or family as virtually its own country, with specific interests in mind, always suspicious of the goals of every other country, every other family, every other individual. As cultural individualists, we can only imagine another person's interests must conflict with ours. If there is any trust within such a system, it is, as President Reagan loved to say, trust, but verify. If we exist within cultural individualism, we make promises reluctantly, because to make promises essentially means to give something up, to have to compromise. I probably don't need to say that cultural individualism is completely antithetical to living within beloved community. Beloved community is all about seeing ourselves as inextricably interwoven with all that surrounds us, with all that exists. Beloved community understands that our own well-being is dependent on the well-being of everything and everyone else, that no one is free unless all are free, that no one is safe unless all are safe. Beloved community is all about making promises and commitments to one another, and if there's an absence of trust within cultural individualism, it follows that there must be a wealth of trust within beloved community. Rather than trust but verify, within beloved community we must say, trust even when. Okay, I know some caveats are necessary here. There are people and relationships and situations that are not trustworthy. And no one need privilege trust over safety or over a need to prevent violence or harm. So please hear that. Not everything is trustworthy. Yet still, I know there are times, because I've experienced them, when knee-jerk distrust shows up, when we enter pre-offended and predisposed to find the places where errors or mistakes have been made. So I only ask that when distrust shows up, you be willing to examine your hearts to see if that distrust is really warranted, and if you might be able to soften, to open up more understanding, more compassion, more trust, more authentic relationship in service of reweaving trust. You know that Unitarian Universalism is a covenantal faith. We are bound or woven together by covenant, which is in and of itself a radical act of trust. In making covenants with one another, we're saying that we trust one another to also be in service of beloved community. Our covenants with one another express what's required of us in relationship with one another. Now, in my opinion, covenant is not as visible here at FUS as it could be, and perhaps at the topic for the May foraging session. But that said, there is a covenant that you are quite familiar with as you speak it most Sundays. We said its words together earlier. Love is the spirit of this place, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Love is the spirit of this place. We are here seeking how to dwell together in peace and how to seek the truth in love, promising to help one another in that process. And it seems to me that if we truly live this covenant and what it requires of us, distrust could not survive. Because the covenant requires us to believe that everyone here making that covenant has the same goals: peace, truth, love, service. Yes, covenant. Covenant, even when we can't verify that trust is warranted for each individual. You know, sure, even within covenant, trust relies on individual commitments, but covenant is rooted in the idea that we create trust together. It's a communal effort, that we're better together, that we can only be our authentic whole selves in relationship. And covenant requires us to let go of protecting our individual interest and to instead pursue, insist on the common good. Now, living into covenant, intentionally practicing covenant, is what makes us trustworthy, which makes our community trustworthy. The ability to trust is kind of a muscle of the heart that's exercised through the practice of covenant. And yet, of course, we do not do this perfectly. The fabric tears or frays. Sometimes we do something that betrays someone's trust in us, and at other times it's someone else who disappoints us. Here again, a well-practiced covenant can serve us as we navigate repairing that harm and rebuilding trust. Living in covenant, we call one another back into that covenant, and we mend together. Even when trust is broken, it can sometimes allow us to access a deeper trust in our own selves, a trust that we can survive and learn even from our failures and suffering. I actually found myself singing Leonard Cohen's anthem this week. You know, there is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Mending the tears, reweaving community can show us the paradoxical nature of life itself. How it is that when our hearts are broken, that can also be the time that they can be broken open to something new, some new understanding, some new love. It's like what was expressed in the poem Chuck read earlier. When we come up against doubt, up against our knee-jerk distrust, if we're able to lean in and choose trust, we can discover that this is where new things come from. This is where the light gets in. You know, when I first read that quote from Marilyn Robinson about how it's trust that knits up the world and is a stuff peculiarly liable to fraying and raveling, I experienced doubt. Raveling's not a word, I thought. Must be a mistake, must be a typo. Unraveling is a word, but raveling? Did she mean unraveling or did she mean the opposite? So I looked it up. I suppose you could say I went to verify my distrust. But instead I found something new. Not only did I learn that my distrust was unwarranted, I learned that there is a word ravel, and ravel can mean both becoming entangled and enmeshed, and can mean coming apart. Ravel and unravel are both synonyms and antonyms of each other. Isn't that crazy? Maybe we can come to see how it is that trust is strengthened by the reweaving after it's been torn. Maybe the commitment to knit together our individual threads exposes us to vulnerabilities of unraveling, even as it ensures that we can become more deeply connected to one another. In these times, 3 words that must now be the most uttered phrase anywhere. In these times. Many forces are trying to drive us apart. And it takes all of our individual and collective strength to resist those forces and to insist that we are not alone and that we'll show up for one another, that we will trust in our human capacity to be compassionate. And we have to be willing, as we stand at this precipice, to practice trust with one another and to trust that this is how the light gets in. May it be so.